Do 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 would be the sound that we'd be hearing if we were talking about the really cool Luigi, the Super Mario Bros. One. Fortunately, we're going to be talking about a little bit of a different Luigi. And now, under some people's eyes, it might be that Luigi, it might be pretty interchangeable if you ask them. And under other people's eyes, this was a horrible act and something pretty cruel to do. But of course, I'm going to be talking about Luigi Mangione because it just recently came out within the past week that he was guilty of the trial. And in fact, he's the one who proved it himself by pleading guilty. And I want to go ahead and talk about this story because I know it's been 2 years since the event, or pretty close to it. I don't know when the exact date of the United Healthcare CEO shooting was, but the fact that it took them this long to get to this part and what ends up happening next, I want to go ahead and talk about and give my thoughts on the situation. I'm your host, Seb, and if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment down below. What are your thoughts on Luigi? Is he a hero? Is he a bad guy? Or is he just kind of in between? Honestly, I'm kind of a little bit torn into what I really think about him, just because the intent behind it was good, but I don't know if I ever agree with taking somebody's life. And that's what I really want to go into in the meat and potatoes about this. Because Luigi, like I said earlier, he ended up pleading guilty to murdering the United Healthcare CEO. And now, unfortunately, I don't remember his name. And I don't really care to know it just because I don't think that he was a good person by any means. But the fact that he ended up murdering him in broad daylight, not a pretty good look, And say what you want about whether or not it was justified, but killing somebody is killing somebody at the end of the day. And what I really want to get into in this story is like the morality behind it, because a lot of people argue that this was right and this is what we need more of from CEOs. And I would disagree because I'm very much a pacifist. No, okay, pacifist is the wrong word. I just don't believe in killing other people to get your way. And if for those of you guys who have been living under a rock and are unaware of the Luigi Mangione situation, basically United Healthcare is a life insurance company where they end up giving medical insurance to people. Oh, sorry, medical insurance, not life insurance, but they end up giving insurance coverages to a bunch of families and a bunch of different people. But the big problem with insurance companies that you guys will soon grow up to find out if you guys are younger and not living your adult life yet is the fact that they make their money by trying to reject any of your claims that you can. And so they give you all of these lists of benefits that you can use the insurance for. But when push comes to shove and you really need them, to help you out of your tough situation because you need to get chemotherapy, you got to get a surgery, or maybe your car got wrecked. They're going to find every single loophole, every single way. They're going to look at your pet dog, and because you named them Gary, that's clause violation number 13. So we ain't going to be able to give you that life insurance policy. And it's really shitty and it really sucks. And a lot of people will argue that life insurance companies are actually guilty of murdering a lot of people because they end up declining a lot of coverages that could be potentially life-saving or life-altering and for the better. And they just deny them. And just straight up refuse to do it. And a lot of people, including myself, hate insurance companies. Even people who are on the left side or who are on the right side, are both parties can agree that insurance companies fucking suck. And they'll tell you that these guys are frauds, especially because nobody loves paying the insurance company. But from the outside looks of it, now this is all speculation. I've never talked to Luigi, but from what it looked like is that Luigi was pretty upset about this and he got fed up with the situation and he wanted to make a statement. And so what does he do? He goes after the biggest health insurance company out there. He stalks the CEO, and then on a random night, he ends up shooting him and killing him. Just beams him down like it's a COD lobby. Now, I hope that joke wasn't too insensitive, but the only reason that I am having a little bit of a joking behind it is just because you're the CEO of a insurance company, right? And so for all of the coverages that were declined, that were denied, that could have been life-saving or life-altering, as I mentioned earlier, he was the head of it. He's the one who was instructing these people, go ahead and do that. If this guy's grandma needs a heart surgery, well, she better pay it up herself because we ain't providing that $100K for her because, everybody needs their 50th yacht when you're a CEO. You need that extra, couple $1,000 because how else are you going to feed your family? The multi-million dollar checks aren't going to cut it, got to go afford to pay the mansion. But all jokes aside, it was really shitty. And I can't say that he was a good person. And I mean, I didn't personally know the guy, but if you're going to be the head CEO of an insurance company that's got as bad of a reputation as United Healthcare, like surely you're not on Santa's nice list, you know? And what really sucked about this thing is the outside perspectives that everybody pitched in because, yeah, what he did or what he led was in a good company and it was pretty harmful to a lot of people. But did the guy also have a family and, you know, people that cared about him? I would say he probably did, you know, even the devil's got some worshipers, right? And so I feel bad for all the people that knew the guy and had to see him, you know, be murdered in the way that he did. But this is where I can sympathize and be like, I understand the people that kind of rejoiced at this and said, you know, this is what justice looks like. Now, where we get into the meat and potatoes about Luigi's situation and all of this is whether or not people thought he should be trialed or not. Because a lot of people were actually in support of him. And even though, like I said, his decision, I didn't agree with the execution of it. I'm on one of the supporter side. I was like, you know, something needed to be done. Again, I wouldn't have said do something drastic like this. Like I would have preferred we just kick out all of our CEOs and try to put people in charge that, you know, care and want to make the world a better place. But this is the route that ended up happening. And a lot of people were hoping that this would end up becoming a mistrial or that we would get people on the courts that, you know, would be in favor because at the end of the day, it's a jury by your peers. And so whatever the court decides, whether it's right or whether it's wrong, a court can decide if they want to put someone in jail or keep them on the streets. And I guess I don't really know what the jury's thoughts on all of this situation was. Maybe they were conflicted or whatever, but it's been 2 years since the event. And what ended up happening is he took a plea deal. And what people are saying is the main reason why they think he took the plea deal is because if he didn't, he probably would have gotten the death penalty because he's under federal and state charges. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, and I had to do some research on it because there's this cool thing called double jeopardy. And what double jeopardy means in terms of law is the fact that you can't be trialed for the same case in a federal level and in a state level. And I had to do some research just because I was reading up on the OKC bombing case. Shout out Wendigoon for making an awesome video about that. But in that video, I know he talked about how the people involved were going to be tried on a federal level and on a state level. And I was really confused because if they could do it on there, then why are they motioning to dismiss the state charges for Luigi in terms of a double jeopardy? And what I ended up learning is because they ended up trialing them differently. In Luigi's case, there was only one crime that he committed. And well, I guess, okay, there was like, in the grand scheme of it all, it was like one major crime where he ended up stalking and murdering someone, right? But on a federal level, like, yeah, that's pretty bad. But it's the same level on the state. Like, there was no difference in the laws that were broken. Like, in both terms, it was stalking and murdering. And in the federal level, he ended up pleading guilty to stalking and murdering. And so for the state level, they're saying now they can dismiss that in terms of double jeopardy, and he will only end up having to serve a life sentence. Which again gets confusing because the law, I don't know, they use some really weird verbs. Because life sentence, as far as I remember, I'm pretty sure it doesn't mean that you're in there for life. I'm pretty sure a life sentence is only 25 years. And again, I don't really know like the wordings and the verbiages of law. Like whoever made it up, shout out you, I guess. You just had to make it the most confusing thing ever. But once you get into the weeds and start to understand it a little bit, it starts to make a little bit of sense. But I guess what I'm most baffled on is on what happens next. Because I don't really know how the public's reaction is going to be to this. I know Luigi, like again, he's not necessarily a hero, but a lot of people sympathize with his actions and like what he did. And so I don't know if this is going to be an inspiration for other people to follow in his suit. I really hope not, because again, I don't agree with murdering anybody. I prefer just taking them out of power and, you know, putting someone who cares in charge. But I can't deny it. There are sympathizers of this thing. Now that I'm thinking about it though, I guess with the introduction of flock cameras being, you know, invading all of our cities, it's probably not going to be as easy for another Luigi to come up and sort of happen. Which I guess is both a good and a bad thing. Shout out Flock, hate you guys, get them out of our cities. I know all of you guys are probably thinking the same thing. That's a little bit of a sidetrack, but as far as what ends up happening next, I don't know. I don't really know what's left in terms of like the court hearing other than just trying to dismiss the charges and then obviously sending Luigi to jail. But I really hope someone does an interview with him, because it's really interesting to know like what's going on in his mind and what ended up, you know, influencing this decision. Because right now, I think there's a lot of speculation that maybe somebody in his family was tied to a United Healthcare claim that got denied and that ended up leading him to go down this path. I'm not sure how much of that information is already out there, but if it is, I'm not aware about it. And so just getting to know what's going on inside of his mind, it'd be really interesting to see. But that's the update that I got for you guys. I hope you learned something, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. You guys have a good one.